Metro schools play a shell game to keep immigrant students from pulling down the district's test scores. That's just the latest question uncovered by News Channel 5 Investigates as the school system continues to face a state investigation. And what News Channel 5 Chief Investigative Reporter Phil Williams discovered, Metro has faced allegations of gamemanship before.
There's been some issues raised about end of course.
Last month, lawmakers held a day-long hearing amid allegations of some Metro high schools pulling struggling students from classes with end-of-course exams, allegedly so those student scores would not be counted in scores used to judge the schools.
But we are doing what is right for the students of Nashville.
Perhaps the strongest defense of the school system came from Dr. Amy Wyatt, Metro's executive officer for high schools.
During our internal review, we have not found instances of gamemanship. Instead, we have found teachers and principals making intervention decisions for students based on their individual best interests.
A long day of testimony ended.
This happened in 2010 at Antioch High School.
With retired teacher John Condit, who testified that at Antioch High School he witnessed the exact same practices 5 years ago. In those cases, he said, immigrant students were pulled from English 2, which counted against the scores for the school, and put into English 4, which did not count.
I was told it came from the administration.
While Condit did not name the Antioch principal at the time, News Channel 5 Investigates discovered it was Amy Wyatt, the same person who now oversees all Metro high schools. Condit said he confronted the principal.
I said, why would these kids be put in English 4 when they're still in English 2? I was told because the test scores, the perception that people see on our test scores, the school looks good and it's the best for the child because a child won't feel like they've lost by failing this class.
In fact, News Channel 5 Investigates obtained this complaint that Condit filed with the state, alleging that ELL students, those are English language learners, were targeted because they were projected not to pass the end-of-course exam. That's the same type of allegation that has Metro schools now facing a state investigation.
Are any students being pulled out of end-of-course exam courses any time during the second semester before the end-of-course exam is administered?
So I'm going to take counsel's advice and not answer your question again.
Dr. Wyatt refused to answer specific questions from lawmakers citing a pending lawsuit. She also declined our request for an interview. After Condit filed his complaint, state officials notified Metro and opened an investigation. That investigation did not find any wrongdoing. Condit says he was later told that someone had gone into the computer system and reassigned the students to their proper classes, although he cannot prove it one way or another.
For obvious reasons, they're still learning our language, so they're probably not going to score well on a writing assessment.
But these Metro schools whistleblowers told us such computer games were common with immigrant students a few years back when all 11th graders were supposed to take writing assessments that were used to evaluate the performance of the schools.
There were times where some students' grade levels were changed from 11 to 10.
They would be demoted in the computer system?
Right.
Yes.
In February. And we didn't have a choice. I mean, we had to move these. Primarily, at least in my schools, they were the English language learners.
This piece of the contract.
District officials say that occurred after former Chief Academic Officer Jay Still developed a new progression plan for high school students in 2009-2010. That plan changed the way credits for English language classes were used to determine grade levels. As a result, 190 students were reclassified that year from 11th grade back to 10th grade. More than 2/3 of those were immigrant students. So these are 11th graders who get demoted to 10th grade in the computer system, and then the next year
They're seniors.
they're seniors.
Provided they passed all their stuff, yeah.
Well, what sense does that make?
You want me to say that out loud?
Well, it's all a part of the same, scenario to keep them, looking like they're making a lot of gains.
Phil Williams, News Channel 5 Investigates.
Now, that progression plan wasn't actually put into writing until 2010, and here's the really bizarre part. It essentially allowed immigrant students to graduate from high school without ever having been considered a junior. That gave Metro a backdoor way into not giving the 11th grade writing assessment to those immigrant students. Metro did away with that plan in the 2011-2012 year, which just happened to be the last year the state used that 11th grade test to judge the schools. Metro Schools released a statement on this. You can read that along with Mr. Condit's complaint on our website, which of course is newschannel5.com.